Again, my name's Anthony Rainey. I currently serve as an international servicing rep for the United Auto Workers in Region 4. As such, I represent workers here in Wisconsin, such as the workers at the Case Tractor plant in Racine, Wisconsin, the Master Lock Company here in Milwaukee, along with the Miller Brewery workers. I'm a Wisconsin native. I'm born and raised here. My parents moved to Milwaukee from Arkansas and Louisiana during the Great Migration. The risks that they took in leaving the Jim Crow South and coming to Milwaukee to build a better life paid off for their family, paid off for me. I graduated from Milwaukee Public Schools. After that, I got a union job working at the Master Lock Company. I worked there for 22 years, rising through the union ranks, eventually serving as president of Local 469. After that, in 2010, I went to work for the United Automobile Workers, where I am now, serving as a servicing rep, as well as a skilled trades coordinator and a civil and human rights coordinator. What Wisconsin did for my family, and what Kenosha does for so many families, is offer the opportunity for working men and women to get ahead, to build a better future for their children, to live the American dream. Of course, Wisconsin, like all places, has its problems, but its communities are close-knit. It's a place where neighbors look out for each other, and it's a place that we all call home. But what we've seen in the last week has rocked the city of Kenosha to its core. The shooting of Jacob Blake, a Black man, shot in the back 7 times by a Kenosha police officer, and the subsequent killing of 2 Wisconsinites at the hands of a militant who crossed state lines and threw our state into further chaos has understandably caused residents to demand justice. It's at a moment like this that it takes leadership and decency to unify us as people, to heal our wounds of racial injustice that have persisted since our country's founding and are evident in Kenosha and in Wisconsin overall. But our current president, Donald Trump, has not only failed to rise to this occasion, he has actively tried to make things worse. But that has been the story of his presidency. Since the moment that Donald Trump launched his candidacy, everything has been about us versus them. He's scapegoated minorities at every turn and has gone so far as to call white supremacists very fine people. When we look at the state of affairs in Wisconsin and across the country, it could not be clearer that we are at a crisis because of Donald Trump. He has failed us as a leader of this country. If we're going to overcome the pain, the anguish, and the division we currently see in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and across our United States, we will need a president who will work every day to bring us together, not tear us apart. The people that I represent, the families like mine, we care about our state, and we all deserve better than our current leadership. We deserve the real leadership we'll get with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to introduce John Drew.
Thanks, Phil. My name is John Drew. I worked at the Chrysler plant in Kenosha for 30 years and was the president of Local 72 and later a regional rep for the UAW. I am currently the vice chair of the UAW Wisconsin State Cap Council and the vice president of Local 72 in Kenosha. It was heartbreaking to watch the video of Jacob Blake being shot 7 times in the back by a Kenosha police officer. Our hearts were broken for him, for his family, and for Black people all across this country who all too often have been the victims of police violence. And our hearts were broken again last Monday when the outrage over the Blake shooting boiled over. Some people took advantage of the very real pain and anger that people felt over the shooting to engage in counterproductive property damage that did not advance the cause of justice. And our hearts were broken again last Tuesday when an incendiary call to arms went out on Facebook asking people to show up downtown with guns. And we all know the deadly aftermath of that. 2 young Kenoshians were shot dead, another man wounded, and a 17-year-old is facing double homicide charges. Over the next few days, Kenosha came together. People helped each other clean up as best they could. People painted positive messages on boarded up windows. On Saturday, people of all races came together in a peaceful protest to demand justice. Now, Trump is coming to Kenosha to take advantage of a Kenosha community that is trying to heal. Trump is coming to undo any progress that was made in the last week, because Trump is not about people coming together, but about inflaming the situation and making people hate each other. The Chrysler plant, where generations of Kenoshians worked, closed 10 years ago. This is part of the aftermath. This is part of what happens when manufacturing jobs and unions are destroyed. I count myself fortunate. I went to work in a plant with people of all different races and backgrounds. We all worked together to build a product we could be proud of. We got to know people of different races and backgrounds. We learned we had the same hopes and dreams. We were all there for the same reason, to make a decent living and provide a better life for our families. And we had a union that believed in equality and tried to educate our membership. It was in Kenosha and across Wisconsin, the opportunities that I had are largely gone. Trump promised he would make it better. He would bring back jobs. I challenge anybody to name one manufacturing job that came back to Kenosha because of Trump's policies. He came to Kenosha a couple years ago and said Foxconn would be the 8th wonder of the world, and there would be 13,000 jobs just up the road. But like all his promises to working people, it never came true. There are a fraction of the 13,000 jobs promised, and we never heard a word about it from Trump. Did he come back to Kenosha and Racine and hold Foxconn's feet to the fire and make them live up to their promise? Of course he did, because he is the king of one and done. Make a promise and then walk away. Trump is coming to Kenosha for one reason and one reason only: to set back the progress made in the last week, to keep people divided, to score political points. Trump's words and his actions emboldened and inflamed vigilantes to bring guns to the protest the other night. He has labeled peaceful protesters as terrorists. Last Monday night, one day before the 17-year-old kid shot and killed 2 protesters on Sheridan Road in Kenosha, the Republican National Convention featured the St. Louis couple who pointed loaded weapons at peaceful protesters. Look, I worked in a plant. I knew those guys, racists who worshiped guns and hated Black people. They were always among us, but now Trump has turned them loose, told them it was okay to show up at protests with loaded weapons. For so long, Wisconsin was a state that valued men and women in labor because it was a movement that was about standing up for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. In the labor movement, we work with elected officials and candidates who keep their promises to working people, like State Senator Bob Wirtz, state reps like Todd Onstead, Tip McGuire, and Greta Neubauer, and of course, Mandela Barnes and Tony Evers. But now, as we are facing the crisis of our lifetime, never have I seen a president as destructive and corrosive to the fabric of our society as Donald Trump. Everything about his presidency has been about dividing us, not uniting us. This is Trump's America, a country desperate for leadership while our president is completely and utterly unable to meet the moment. He's even politicized COVID-19 to the point where a common sense solution like wearing a mask can now be considered a political statement. And it is his slash and burn approach to politics that has prolonged our ability to gain some sense of normalcy back in our lives. And as he sows more and more chaos, we will not get our economy back. Ultimately, communities like Kenosha pay the price. With nearly 30 million Americans out of work, our healthcare system pushed to the brink, and a justice system that routinely fails our Black and brown neighbors, we need a unifier in chief more than ever. Trump has failed time and again to meet the moment. Our country can't take 4 more years of his failed leadership. We need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House to address racial injustice, economic turmoil, and to bring leadership in the fight against the pandemic. Thank you.